So if you're like me, you're a dungeon master, and one of your most commonly used tools, even if you don't really use it all the time, is your dungeon master screen. It sits in front of you at the table. It's typically the barrier between you and your players, and more often than not, if you're like me, you're using it primarily to hide your dice rolls and your notes from your players. You don't actually use the screen that much because a lot of us are using something out there, the DM screen they got that came with a starter set, campaign-specific one, the DM screen reincarnated, something like that. And while it has a lot of useful information, it has a lot of stuff that you probably will never use. It has more art on the inside than you'd ever expect, and you don't need art on the inside of your DM screen. It's a tool for you as the DM. You can have art on the other side, which is pretty for the players to see, but you just want the tools and tables you need to run your game. And while I was going to take post-it notes and tape index cards and that kind of stuff to the inside, that's not the case anymore, as I have recently received the Legendary Dragons GM screen from Jetpack7, and I think this, without a doubt, is the best DM screen on the market for any Dungeon Master, and it also is campaign agnostic. So if you want to see why I like this so much, stay tuned. So, first up, I do want to say up front that this video was sponsored by Jetpack7. This is a copy that was provided to me by them for review purposes. The video is also being sponsored by them. That being said, the opinions on this video are my own, and I would never compromise my integrity just because someone is sponsoring the video. So let's get that out of the way. There will also be a link in the description below if you'd like to pick up a copy for yourself. So, first of all, if you know anything about Jetpack7, which I've talked about them in the past, the artwork for any of their stuff is amazing. So you can see right here, we have some really amazing dragon art on the outside of the screen. So if your players like to look at cool stuff, you've got some cool dragon-based art for them to look at. But realistically, if you're a DM, what you want to see is what's inside the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the camera in close. We're going to kind of look through each section, and I'm going to talk to you why I think it's better than the existing screens out there, and if there's anything I would change or wouldn't change. All right, so first up on the right-hand side on the inside here, you have actions in combat. Again, not something, this may be something that I might change personally because I don't really need to know what a person can do as an action in combat. I feel like this is more useful personally to the players. But for newer DMs, this definitely has a big benefit, right? So what can you do as an action on your turn? It lists them all out here, right? Attack, cast a spell, dodge, help, hide, search, and so on. So these may be things that people don't know or you're not aware of or you forget about. And then it also says what can you do on your turn down here in this red bar, which is move up to your speed, take one action, communicate with speech, gestures, or both, interact with one object or feature of the environment as you move or take your action, to interact with a second object, take the use an object action. It says take the use and object action. It's supposed to be use an object action, so that's actually a little typo. There's if you look down there, it should be use an object, not and object, but that's something small. The only thing it doesn't say on here that I would possibly have added in is if, and it's kind of a complicated thing, right? Using your bonus action, you can use a bonus action to do something only if you have something that allows you to do it. But again, I understand why it's not there because it's not a specific thing you could do every time. It also does go in pretty in-depth here. So aside from just telling you what you can do, it describes things a little bit further, right? So what dash is, movement for the current turn increases equal to your movement speed. Cast a spell says cast a spell of first level or higher, must have a casting time of one action. Here for hide, it says make a dexterity stealth check in an attempt to be unseen or unheard. It talks about how readied actions actually work if you're unfamiliar. Making a search roll is a perception or investigation check. It tells you how the help action works, so that's useful. On this other part of the panel here, we have a whole section up top here about concentration. So you can see about how concentration is and how it must be maintained. Again, something that I feel like a lot of, and it's in a good spot right where you're typically going to look if you're looking over to one of your players. I feel like I'm pretty good about this, but I know some DMs have a hard time remembering that players need to make concentration checks, or more importantly, like after every hit, they need to make it. So this gives you right at the top of the screen a spot that you're probably going to have clear of stuff like books and things in the bottom. What concentration is, how it works, what the DCs are to make it, what ends concentration, and then certain environmental phenomena and how they'll interact with that. You have a whole section on here about hiding, which again is something that comes up pretty often as you look down here, right? So trying to hide, you make a stealth check, perception checks against you. You can't hide from a creature that can clearly see you. You also give away your position if you make noise. And then it talks about how passive perception is related to hiding. Then we have down here stuff that again comes up pretty often, I'd say, high jump and long jump, right? They don't come up too often, but they're rules that I've had found myself in the past flipping back to my player's handbook to find. So you have the rules for high jump and long jump, also rules for suffocating, which is a good one because that's surprisingly more often than not as a DM, that is something I find myself looking up more than I'd like to admit, and I keep always forgetting how it works. So that's good to have suffocation rules. So now let's move on to the second panel here, which we have. I'm going to have to sort of try to balance this here, but we can zoom ourselves out. Oops, or not. We'll just drop the screen entirely. So here on the second panel, you can see we have at the top here, trap save DCs and attack bonuses. So this says trap danger, is it a setback, dangerous, or deadly? Gives you the save DC and the attack bonus. The trap damage by severity, so this is the character level in the 4 different tiers, 1 through 4, 5 to 10, 11 to 16, 17 to 20, and then danger levels of damage associated by that setback, dangerous, and deadly. And then over here we have exhaustion, the 6 levels of exhaustion and what they give. And then nicely at the bottom half of just one panel is all of the different conditions. So this is going to be blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, grappled, incapacitated, invisible, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, restrained, stunned, and unconscious. So the reason I say this is I think it may have been the Rise of Tiamat or the Horde of the Dragon Queen DM screen. To get this bit of condition information was 2 full panels of the whole screen to just give you that, because it also included all of the artwork from the player's handbook showing like someone tied up in a spider web for restrained and someone with a blindfold for blinded. Again, this is a DM screen. This is a tool for me as a DM. I want this as a quick reference. I don't need to have flashy art. Again, Jetpack7, a company known for their art, understands that the inside of the screen just needs to have the information that you need, not a ton of art for you personally to look at. All right, then we're going to move on to our third panel here, which here, this is probably one of the most useful ones right here at the top, falling. So if we come over here and look at this, this gives you something that I find a lot of DMs are always struggling for, which is creature fall distance by the second. So in 1 second, they fall 16 feet, in 3 seconds, 144 feet, and in 6 seconds, or 1 round, you fall 576 feet. Creature takes 1d6 falling damage for every 10 feet that it fell, to a maximum of 20d6 damage. The creature falls prone or lands prone unless it avoids taking damage from the fall. So if you're sitting there and wondering, man, you know, my character just fell, a whole minute of combat is, you know, 10 6-second rounds. So we're going to go through that whole round of combat. How far do I fall? More often than not, yeah. When you fall in combat, if you're flying and you drop and you don't have feather fall, you're falling the full distance and taking the full damage. There's really not a ton of ways for people to interrupt and save you from falling. That's sort of just how it works. But here's a real true qualifier if you want to get into the math. Like, you fall on your turn, but each round of combat is 6 seconds, so you're probably going to fall a little less than 600 feet almost immediately. Then we just have stuff here for establishing a DC, right? So we've got our DC, you know, 5 to 30. The different this is again stuff that's standard on a DM screen. We have stuff for tracking creatures. I don't know if this was on the existing DM screen, but like the different DCs for tracking, and then qualifiers for if it's harder or easier. This is also again something useful that I feel like doesn't come up until it does, and then everybody forgets where it is. Hit points and you know, like AC and things for objects, right? So chests, barrels, carts, and stuff, whether they're fragile or resilient, and what their hit points are, so how hard they are to defeat if you're trying to break through a bottle, a chest, a lock, things like that. And then armor classes for different objects, right? So cloth and paper, adamantine AC is going to be 23. So you got to hit 23 to even hit the thing. Down here, again, not super needed for me personally because I've been playing the game for a while, but for new DMs, this could be useful. The typical skills associated with their ability score, right? So acrobatics is typically dexterity. As we know from the player's handbook, you can typically use, if the situation warrants and you can explain it well, any ability score to use a specific skill, right? So you could make a strength intimidation check if you do so in a way that makes it so you're using strength and you're basically showing how strong you are to intimidate people. So this is not really needed for me, but again, I could see how new DMs might like it. Then if we go up here to the top of this, we have, obscurity, right? So, or what are things that are lightly obscured or heavily obscured? And it'll give us the effect and examples of that. We have cover rules here, half, 3/4, and total cover. This was something that I didn't really realize, so I liked having this here. Light sources. I did not know until I looked at this screen that a bullseye lantern threw a 60-foot cone of bright light and then a 60-foot cone of dim light. I thought like a bullseye lantern was similar in nature to a torch, which is what everybody's I feel is really used to. 20 feet of dim light, 20 feet of bright light in a radius around the torch for an hour. And then a hooded lantern is 30 and 30 for 6 hours, or only 5 feet if you put the hood down. But yeah, I did not realize that the bullseye lantern throws you 120 feet of light. So that's ridiculous amount of bright light in a cone in front of you. So theoretically, in a dark area, you are still in darkness, but everything in front of you is in light. And I actually just completely looked over that and didn't even think about it until I saw it on this screen. We have things about size categories. Again, if you're using a grid, this is useful, because if you're not, this is kind of useless. But if you forget, right, a medium creature is 5 by 5 on a grid, so 1 square. Large is 10 by 10, so 2 by 2. We have a section down here on unarmed strike. Instead of using a weapon to make a melee attack, you can use an unarmed strike to make a punch, kick, or headbutt, or similar. An unarmed strike deals bludgeoning damage equal to 1 plus your intelligence, 1 plus your strength modifier. You are proficient with unarmed strikes. Again, a further affirmation that you are proficient with unarmed strikes if you're unaware. And then we have our last panel here, which here we have, this is more specific to Jetpack7, so I really like these. So let's take a look. We have attacking creature behavior. You can see we have 1 through 10, and then it has what their behavior is. So this, I could see, we'll go through a couple, but what I could see here is if you are going to put random monsters or NPCs in the world and you're not really sure how the players are going to interact with them, or how the party, or how they should perceive the party, you could use this to roll and find out. So you see 1 up here is aggressive. No mercy shown. All creatures will pair up and attack single targets. Priority of attack will be against spellcasters and healers. If a single target is determined to be 2 pairs of creatures, the creatures will change focus and attack the lone target from all sides. Strategic, 1 creature will direct the attacks for any other creatures. Target priority will be spellcasters or healers, unless another target is significantly injured or prior to combat. In that instance, they become that. So this is going to define like how you want your enemies to be. So are they aggressive? Are they strategic? Like let's take down the healers and the spellcasters first. Are they confused? All creatures will change their focus each round, moving to the next closest target. When a creature is killed or knocked unconscious, they'll move on. Are they protective? Are they going to, the most powerful / least injured creature will remain the furthest distance from all targets. All other creatures will attack any combatants that deal damage, and they're going to try to protect that creature. Are they cunning? 1 creature will direct all other creatures to make grapple attacks against the most powerful non-spellcaster / healer. The next grapple attack will be made against the nearest non-spellcaster. Or are they cowardly? All creatures will attempt to attack what they perceive to be the weakest target, fleeing if 1 or more of them take damage. So again, there's more here. I didn't go through all of them, but you get the idea, right? So there's giving you opportunities and ways to, at the very least, this could be a fun thing that you develop on the fly for your game. It could be something you figure out ahead of time. So like, okay, if they run into this random encounter, these enemies today are bloodlust, so they're going to act like this. Again, it's just something different that I haven't seen on a DM screen before, and it's specific to Jetpack7, so I enjoy that. Then we have our mount table right here up at the top, which is just going to be the cost, the speed, and the carry capacity for most mounts that you're going to find in the player's handbook. Camel, mule, elephant, and so on. Then we have travel pace, again, useful here. Fast, normal travel pace, minute, hour, day, and then the negative penalty. So if you're going to move at a normal pace, you can move about 24 miles a day. This is at a normal pace. This doesn't seem like it's including anything if you're using a horse or not. And then if you go at a slow pace, it's only 18 miles, but you can use stealth. If you go at a fast pace, you can go 30 miles, but at a -5 penalty to passive perception scores. Then over here we have the ever useful food, drink, and lodging table, which is going to give you like how much a gallon of ale costs, how much a mug costs, different cheese, food, bread, stay at an inn, meals per day, a chunk of meat, wine, and so on. That's useful. Down here at the bottom we have the different services that are in the player's handbook, right? So a coach cab between cities, between towns, getting a hireling, skilled or unskilled, a messenger, tolls for gates or roads, and then ship's passage by the mile. And this is again another Jetpack 7 original here, which is crate or chest content options. Roll a d20 twice. So the first one is the contents, and the second one is the condition. These are very high level, so this gives you a lot of opportunity as the DM to pay to use this either again in the moment if you're trying to figure something out and you don't have something planned, or something you could do ahead of time, plan out, and then build encounters around it. So you can see here we have everything from like straw and packing only in the crate or chest. Is there mixed armor, blank spellbooks, hand-carved toys, clothing for male, female, or child, scrolls for a d8 cantrips, scrolls for a d8 spells, or magic items is the natural 20, portraits, rug, farm tools, etc. So you could have the players roll, you could roll, and then you have the crate or chest options for the condition of them. Are they cursed, destroyed, poor condition, damage, infested with insects? Are they trapped? Different damages for the traps. Are they haunted? Incomplete, so that would be sucks if you find like magic armor, but it's incomplete, so you don't have the full set. It has a hidden compartment. It has a historic. It's historic and magical. It's historic and valuable. There's a reward if found notice with it. It's royal. It's in good condition, or it's in excellent condition. So that is everything contained inside the Jetpack 7 DM screen. Let me spin the camera around and we'll talk about final thoughts. So I realized I didn't talk about it so far, so I should talk about logistics. First of all, it is officially called the Legendary Drakken's Game Master Screen. It is currently available at jetpack7.com. It is $25 to pick it up. They have plenty of them in stock if you want to go get one for yourself. There will be a link in the description below, though, and I do have a coupon code to get you a percentage off on this. So if you want to pick one up, it's a great holiday gift if you want to get one for your friends, your family, your new DMs, your current DM, your future DM. No one's going to say no to a good DM screen. And if you're not doing a campaign-specific one, like there's a lot of great ones out there, but they're all tied to a specific campaign, this is a very useful tool that is campaign agnostic, so it'll work for any campaign or just a homebrew campaign like I'm doing. So again, I highly recommend this product. Once again, thank you to Jetpack7 for sponsoring this video and sending the copy for review. I've been using this in my current games, and I am not regretting it, putting away my other one that I was using. So anyway, check the link in the description if you want to check out Jetpack7 or pick up a copy of this at the discount code. It'll all be down there, so be sure to check that out, and be sure to stay tuned for more Nerd Immersion content in the future.